Welcome back to the Arbitress YouTube channel. In today's class, we are going to learn how to make this beautiful overbust corset. It's a very simple tutorial. It can be worn on an outfit just like you see it here, and it can also be worn separately on its own. It's a very beautiful tutorial and it's beginner friendly. This is something you like to learn. Stay tuned till the end. Thank you. This is an overbust corset, so I'm going to be drafting it from my basic bodies. It's not going to have a yoke or anything. It's a tube, so it means it's not going to have a armhole or a sleeve attachment. I have drafted my basic bodies here. As you can see, the lines that we have here, this is my chest line, this is my chest line, this is the bust point, the under bust, and this is the waistline, and here is my full length. Okay, so the full length is about 24 inches or there, but I'm just working with what is on my paper here. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to use my nipple to nipple measurement to get my bust line. For me, that is 8 inches, whereby 2 is 4. So on the hip line, I'm marking 4 inches. On the waistline, I'm marking 4 inches. I'm doing the same thing on the bust line, and I'm going to make it into a straight line up to the hem. Okay, so after marking the straight line, I'm going to go over to the shoulder, which is here, and then I'm going to mark what I have there, and I'll divide that into 2. So on that point, I'm going to connect that to my bust point, just like this. It's very important. That is how you know how your dart is going to go. Okay, so after that, the next thing now is to take my actual dart. Excuse me. On my under bust, I'm taking 1 inch on both sides. On my waistline, I'm doing the same thing, and I'm doing the same thing on my hem. Okay, for the hem, you can also take 1/2 inch on both sides, but I want to join this together. I don't want to sew the dark lines. I'll just use my glue to join them together. So that's why I have everything straight like this, so that it's going to be easy for me to just close them up and use my glue to hold them. So I'll take my curved ruler and connect this to my bust point. So I'll just come down by like 1/2 inch on my bust point area, and then I'm going to connect this just like this. So here, to determine the dart that I'm going to have on this part, I'm going to measure my neckline. That's how deep I want the neckline to be. So you can do that from the upper part here. You can measure the depth of your neckline, or you can just, from your bust point, you can just come up by 4 inches, depending on what you want, to just know the height that you want for your bust. Okay, 4 inches or 3.5 inches is fine, because I'm going to be wearing this on a dress. Okay, so I don't really need it to be so high. I want it to be low. Like I said, this is a tube, so I don't want it to drop on the armhole. So I think I'm okay here. If you check from the upper part, is about 7 inches, which is fine. You can still adjust it if you want. Then you come to the center part area, you measure the depth of your center fold as well, where you want it to be on the center fold. Like I said, I'm wearing this on something, so I don't mind it being low. Okay, so I think I'm just going to maintain what I have here on my chest line as the depth of my center fold, and then I'm going to connect like this. Okay, so here on the armhole area, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from my armhole, and that is where I'm going to connect these two. So here with my curved ruler again, I'm going to find a way to just smoothen this out. Okay, make sure that everything just blends well. You don't want it being sharp or anything. Okay, So you can see what I have there. So after this now, I'm going to go ahead and take my dart to tighten the upper part. So for that, I'm taking a dart of 1.5 inches. So you can share this 1.5 inches into two between them, or you can just take half an inch on one side and 1 inch on the other. So I'm sharing mine, and I'm going to connect that to my bust point, just like this. Okay, you can see how I have taken my dart there. So the next thing now, remember this is a corset and we need to create our cup. I want this to have a bust that this is going to tighten the under bust area for me, and also going to contour the cup area more. So to get that, I'm just going to work with my circumference measurement here. So here I'm going to take my bust measurement. For my bust measurement, the bust is 44 divided by 4 is 11. So I have 11 inches here. Whatever that you have taken here, you had that. I have about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance. Okay, on my waistline, I'm going to take my waist measurement. The waist is 36 divided by 4 is 9. So here I have taken 3 inches here. I'm just going to skip the dart area and then continue my measurement. So I have 9 inches here, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance to that as well. And then here on the hem, you can work with your hip measurement. So it's actually not necessary in this case because I'm still going to shape it. So it's like a basque effect. The hem is not going to be fitted. Okay, so I really don't need the hem. So I can just place my hip measurement there, or you can just maintain what you have on your waistline. But for me, I'm just using my hip measurement, so just in case you are working with a proper corset that is not going to have a basque effect. So I'm connecting from my waist to my bust, and then from bust to hip. So here on the bust point area, I'm going to come down by 2 inches for the bust dart, and then I'm going to connect that to my bust point. So these are all the darts that I'm going to be taking. This, and this. You can see my darts now are shaded out. So to create my cup, on the center point area here, there's a center line that we normally have in between our corsets. So it depends on how wide you want it to be. If it's going to be 1 inch wide, then you're going to mark half an inch. Remember, this is on fold, and if you want it to be up to 2 inches wide, you're going to mark 1 inch here. So until a little wide, so around 1.5 inches. So that means I'm going to mark 0.75. So here I'm going to mark 0.75 inches. Yeah, or half an inch as well. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bust point line. Okay, so those lines now, I'm going to make them into a straight line up to where I have this now. Okay, so now here I can just reconcile it a bit. Okay, or depending on how low you want it to be. If you still wish to maintain this depth, all you just need to do now is to take your curved ruler and then reconnect this to this depth, because this is going to be straight. So now you just take your ruler now and then reconnect this, and this is going to make your corset even deeper. But if you don't want it so deep, you can just take this like this, and then you go with your actual measurement, the curve that you already have here. I hope you understand that. So after getting this center line now, I'm going to click my curved ruler and then connect from my under bust to this part. So this way I have formed my first cup size. So to do the second one, I'm going to close my bust dart. So for me to be able to close this bust dart, I will open one of the waist darts that I have here, so that I can transfer the dart that I'm closing to that side. Okay, so after opening it like this, I'll just go ahead and close this dart. Okay, so with your masking tape, you can easily close that part. So after closing it, we'll be able to draw our second cup. So you can see I am just closing the dart that we have there, and then I'll use this tape to hold it down. Okay, so after that now I can easily cut my okay, the side of my blouse. So now remember, this is where my actual measurement stops. This is the allowance. So here I'm just going to come in by 1 to 2 inches. So I just leave it at around 1.5 inches, which is here, and then I'm going to take my cuff and then connect for the second cup. Okay, so you can see what we have here. So the next thing I want to do is just to reconcile what I have here. Remember, I'm going to be sewing these two together, so I want to see if it's the same. So here I'm going to measure what I have, and I have about 3.5 inches, so I'll mark the other one as well. So this is around 4, so I'm going to extend this line as well, so that I'm not going to run into any issues when I am sewing. So it's either you extend this line or you shorten this. Just make sure that they are the same. Okay, that's what we are trying to achieve here. Okay, and for me, I think I don't want it this low, so I'm going to maintain this. So I'll just connect to the first line there. Okay, so you can see what I have now. So now you can easily cut this out. So you cut your center line, you cut this bust area, and then I'm going to cut the remaining darts that I have here as well. So for the side, you cut off these darts as well, and then you cut your neckline. Remember, I said this is a tube, it doesn't have an armhole, so I don't need this. We are going to be working with a yoke, you can work with that. So here I'm going to cut the remaining dart here as well, and this is what I have. So you can see this is what we have for now. The next thing now is to remove the cups. So I'm going to remove the cups and then label them, so that I'm not going to get confused when I want to sew them together. Okay, so these are my cups, and I will label this as my center fold. You can also label the upper part, but it's quite obvious. So these are my cups, and for the lower part, remember I said I don't want to have seam line. So what I'm going to do is just to bring them together like this, and then I'm going to hold them with my masking tape. So I'll go ahead now and cut this on my fabric. I'm going to cut it on my lining as well. I'm going to add interfacing to this, but I'm also going to run us through the back quickly. Okay, so for the back, I have drafted my back just like we draft our normal back. This is my dart, this is my side seam, and this is my armhole. So the back is also going to be a tube. So the first thing we need to do, remember we dropped the armhole for the front by 1 inch. So I'll do the same thing for the back as well. I'm going to drop the armhole by 1 inch, just like I have it here. So if you want a particular neckline for the back, you can work, but for me, I'm just going to make it straight to the center back like that. Or if you have any other design, if you even want it lower, you can make it lower and then you slant it to what you have in front. So for me, tentatively, I'm just leaving my own straight like that. So which means all of this that I have is not going to be necessary for the back again. I'm working with from here to the waist. So now the next thing I'm going to do is that this is not going to have a zipper. Remember, this is a zipper allowance. This is not going to have a zipper. I'm going to be lacing it at the back. And if you notice, my back measurement stops on the waistline. Remember, I said I'm still going to modify the front. Okay, it's because this is not on fold. Assuming it was on fold, I would have done this. By the time I transfer it to my fabric, I'm going to reshape the hem of the front. So this is where I want the back measurements to stop, and this is around 17 inches for me. This is where the back is going to stop, and then I'm going to reconcile the front hem as well, so that it can match up with what I have here. So the last thing to do on the back is to decide how big you want the gap for the back to be. Remember, this is still on fold, so let me just remove the zipper allowance that I have there, and then the upper part, so that we can just work with what is on her table. So here and all of this now are going off. Okay, so I just need this. So like I said, this is still part of the back bodice. I'm going to be lacing it up. So for that lacing, I need space. So to create that opening that we have at the back, it depends on how open you want it to be. So if you want it to be around 4 inches like this, if you want it to be this wide, it means you're going to mark out 2 inches from here and cut it off, so that by the time you 2 inches for this first side, 2 inches for the second side, is going to leave you with 4 inches. If you want it more, okay, if you want it to be 5 inches, you just need to mark out half of whatever space that you want there. So for me, I think I'm going to be going with 4. Okay, so if I'm going with 4, I'm just going to mark 2 inches away on the upper part here, and then do same thing on the lower part, and then connect it. Okay, just like this. So which means all of this is going off as well. I hope you understand it. So it means that part is going to be open. Okay, let me try to show us what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see it. This open part at the back, this lacing part that we have, that's the part I am cutting out from the main body. So now I'm going to be removing that part now. I just want to cut my whole back now, and then I'll cut off this part and close my dart. So it's as simple as that. With this, the back is ready as well. So now I'm going to go ahead now and cut all of this on my fabric. Okay, I'll cut it on my fabric, and that is what I need to do. So you can see what I have. With my masking tape again, I'm going to hold this part down. So these are the pattern pieces that I have. These are the cups, this is the back, and this is the front. Like I said, I'll go and cut this front is going to be cut on fold here, so please remember that. I'll cut my fabric, my lining and interfacing, and then I'll bring it back so that we can continue. I'm going to cut them out on my main fabric. I'm using this Ankara fabric, you can see, and the front was cut on fold just like I explained. So this is what it looks like. I added stay to it just to strengthen the fabric, and this is the back as well. So I did the same thing for the back. I added stay for my back, and then for the cup area, I'm padding this with wadding. So I just added my wadding. I left half an inch to turn the neckline, and I have fused it with my iron. So like I said, the front is going to be reshaped. I couldn't do that because my front was not cut on fold on the paper. So remember, the side of the back stops at 18 inches. This is the side area, so you can measure that, or you can just use your side to match what you have in front. Remember, you can see that it stops here. We still have all of this excess, so I'll just put it on fold so that I can note the side of both front and back together. So now this is me putting it on fold by the side, and then I'm going to bring in the side of the back. Okay, so this is the side, and I am simply going to note where this stops. I'm using a marker because I tried chalk and they are not showing, and I want you to see this well, so I'll just dab it faintly. You should use a chalk for this. So this is where it stops. Okay, this is where my side is going to stop for the front as well. So I just want to mark out the seam allowance that I used for the back, on both sides. Okay, so I'll just note where it stops on this side as well, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark out my seam allowance. So after that, I'm going to open it out. Okay, so after opening it out, you need to decide which side you want to be longer. Like I said, it's going to be like a basque effect, but the basque is not going to be at the center, it's going to be on one side. So you can see the notches that I have here. I have some notches here. This is my center front, and these are my dart 8 lines. So like I said, if it were to be a regular center basque, you just connect to that point that were marked, but in this case it's not going to be on the center. It's going to tilt towards one of the dart line, which is this. Okay, this is, I want it to be on this side. So the next thing I'm going to do is to just take my ruler, and then from that part I'm going to connect to my waist there, and then on this side as well I'm going to do the same thing. So it's going to be shorter on this side and long on this side. You can see the shape that we have there now. So after creating that shape, I'm going to grab my scissors now, and I am going to cut this out. So if you want your V shape to be more pronounced, you can also extend the length of your corset. Okay, you can extend the length, but mine is just 25 inches and it's fine for me. So I want 24 to 25 inches, which is fine for me. So now I have shaped it, and this is what it looks like. You can see that the basque is tilting towards one side. It is more on one side. So this is what I have. So now this that I have shaped now is what I'm going to use to cut out my lining. I'm going to cut the lining for the front, I'll cut for the back, and I'll cut for the cups as well. If I have enough stay, I'm going to add interfacing to that as well, because I'm going to be sewing boning on it and I want it to be strong. So after doing that, now the next thing now is for us to come back and mark our boning channels if you want to add boning to it. So you mark your boning channel, you sew in your boning, and then we'll turn it out. Okay, so like I said, I have cut my lining as well, and then I fuse the interfacing to the lining as well. Okay, so I want to add boning. Okay, this regular boning, I want to add it to the main fabric. So I'm going to add just 3 to the front. You can do as much as you want to provide support, and you can also use a plastic bone that is stronger than this. If you don't want to use a plastic bone and you want something stronger, you can also double this, but I'm just using just single of this. I'm adding 3 to the front, and you can see my line. One is going to be at the center, and I'm going to have 1 inch on the dart area. If you want more, you can also place one here. Just make sure it doesn't enter into your seam allowance. Okay, so that is going to be it for the front, and then for the back I'm going to be lacing it. Okay, so to provide structure, you can detach the pattern and create your lacing bar separately. Remember, this is the original pattern that I closed, so you can just detach this part and create yours separately. I think I have a tutorial on that, but mine is together, so that's how I'm going to be working with it. So this is the size of the highlight that I'm going to work with. So to provide support for it, is going to be in between. I'm going to be placing 2 bonies on each side of the highlight, so that by the time we are pulling and all of that, is still going to be strong. So I will leave allowance for sewing. I'm going to place 1 boning here. Then after that, I'm going to mark out enough space that is going to accommodate my highlight, and then I'm going to place another boning on the side. So if I want, I can just place another one somewhere here or thereabouts. So those are the boning channels that I'm going to create. I'll go and do that now. Then after that, I'm going to join my cups together. Okay, remember, these are your cups. It's going to be like this. So I'll just go ahead and sew everything together. Since we reconciled it when we were drafting, it's going to be exactly the same. Okay, I'll join my cups and then bring it back to show us. So I have created my channels and I have sewn in my boning. Okay, so you just iron it flat. This is what I have. And for the back as well, I left this space to place my highlight, and then I fixed my boning as well. So I've joined my cup. Okay, this is my cup, and then I press the seams open. So this is what I have for the first cup, and this is what the second cup looks like. You can see the depth that we have for this cup. So this is the lining for the 2 cups as well. They are all sewn and iron as well. So what I'm going to do next now is to go ahead and fix my cup inside this space that I created for it. So I'll do the same thing for the lining as well, and then after that I'm going to join the sides, okay, of the lining separately and the main body separately, and I'm going to use that to turn each other. So that's basically what I'm doing. So you can see now that I have sewn my cup and it just fits perfectly into it. So I'll just reduce the seam allowance that I have here so that I can relax properly. You can notch as well, and then I'm going to bring in my back now and sew. So I have done this for the lining as well. You can see what I have on the lining. I'm going to notch this curved part as well so that it can relax well for me, and then I'm going to sew the back of the lining to this as well so that I can easily turn it. So the front and back is sewn together, you can see, and then I laid the lining and the main fabric against each other. So everything has to match. Make sure you work with the exact seam allowance that you marked, and then I sew it all round. So you can see that they are all sewn round now. So what I'm going to do is to notch around all of them, and then I'm going to turn it out with this small space. If it's not enough, I'm going to open it up more. I'm going to turn out from here that I left, and then I'll go ahead and iron it so that I can create my loop for lacing. So I have turned it out, as you can see, and I have, you see, I just went ahead to iron it. This is what it looks like on the inside. Okay, so this shiny part, I actually placed my stay on this before I mistakenly placed it, so I had to remove it. That's why you have it this shining, and you can see that it is neatly finished both in and out. This is what it looks like on the inside, and this is what it looks like on the outside. So all you just need to do is to iron this properly, and you can see that the cup area is looking really beautiful as well. It's so beautiful. So now the next thing now is to go ahead and create our loops on this space that we left. Remember, we have boning on these 2 sides, so I'm just going to create the loops in between like this. This video is already very long, so I'm going to be making another video on how to do that, because I'm making use of this grommet machine to apply the loops. So the last thing I'm doing to this is applying this this trimming that I have here. So I'm just going to be cutting it out and then placing it on the neckline area. So I'm just going to try to arrange it anyhow I want, just to beautify it so that it's not so plain. So I'm going to find a way to do this, and then I'll take it to the mannequin so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so I have embellished it with my trimming. Okay, it can be as full as you want. If you have enough, you can cover it all up. I just wanted to have a little bit of that. So this is what it looks like on the mannequin. You can see the design that we have on the hem, and I placed it on this mermaid dress that I already made. I hope you enjoy making this with me. Thank you for watching. Bye.